Hey everybody, it's Eric from EP Autos again, your Libertarian car guy, and I thought I would do a quick little rant about speed limits. Lots of stuff to talk about when it comes to speed limits, but to me one of the ironic things about speed limits is that they're really not. If you think about what the literal definition of a speed limit would be, it would be the maximum speed for any given road. But in practice, speed limit means the speed that pretty much everybody's driving if they're not driving actually faster than the speed limit. Now, a speed limit implicitly is a maximum. I mean, you would think, okay, 45 miles an hour, that is the absolute fastest that anybody should be driving on, for example, the road that I'm on right now. Of course, it's preposterous. Everybody drives not only the speed limit, but usually slightly faster than the speed limit. And that's because, for the most part, speed limits in this country, and in particular on secondary roads, meaning other than highways, are grossly underposted. And that's not just an opinion, that's an objective fact. The way speed limits are supposed to be calculated or set is by doing a traffic survey, meaning they have a guy or guys who sit and monitor the flow of traffic on a given stretch of road. They determine how fast the cars are traveling and the speed at which roughly 85% of them are traveling should then be the basis for setting the speed limit. And it's a little difficult to understand, but what it amounts to is that whatever the speed limit is, it should comport with the natural flow of traffic that approximately 85% of the cars on that road are traveling. That's called the 85th percentile rule. And if a speed limit is set in accordance with the 85th percentile rule, it would mean that about 15% of the traffic would be going faster than the posted speed limit. Now think about how things are actually in the real world. Pretty much anytime you go for a drive, almost all the cars on any given road are technically speeding. They're driving at least as fast as the posted limit, if not slightly faster than the posted limit. So speed limits have become kind of a sick joke. They're obeyed only when a cop is around, or if it's a glaucomic old person, or the occasional clover. But most people know they're ridiculous. They're certainly not physical limits in the sense that, oh, if I drive any faster than that, it's dangerous, and if I drive the speed limit, I'm really operating on the knife edge of safety. And putting myself at great risk and great peril. Most of us know that we could drive with our knees and one eye closed, half asleep eating a Big Mac, going the speed limit on almost any road, assuming you're a reasonably competent driver. So that's the first thing about speed limits. The second thing about speed limits is that they're one size fits all, completely arbitrary. And for the most part, they are based on the least common denominator. They don't take any cognizance whatsoever of the fact that every single person has a different skill set, is a better or worse driver than the next guy. So there's a great range. And the one-size-fits-all thing is just unfair on the face of it and stupid on the face of it. Why should a person who is perfectly capable of driving a car on a road like this with a current 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, who can drive on this road at, say, 60 miles an hour, not cause any problems, not harm anyone, why should he be punished for exceeding the arbitrary speed limit? And conversely, there are people who are such poor drivers that even operating at the speed limit is a problem for them, and yet they're considered, at least within the law, not a problem. They might be people who would run over a cyclist, for example, on the parkway because they can't see them, or who wander across the double yellow, but they're going the speed limit or less than the speed limit, so generally the cops will leave them alone. So what do I advocate? What do I think? Well, I think that speed limits should be advisories. I don't think there should be limits. I think that having road signage as a way to inform drivers about general rules, or not rules, but just advisories. For example, if you're not familiar with the road, it might be helpful to know that there's a curve up ahead and that you might want to slow down. But if you're familiar with that road, you might know perfectly well that while the sign suggests 45 miles an hour, you know that you can take that curve without hurting anybody or causing any problems at 55 or 60 or whatever the speed is. As a libertarian, I believe in the harm caused standard as opposed to he might standard, which is the way that most of our laws are currently set up. In other words, I think that unless you actually do something that ends up causing a harm to somebody, you should be left alone. The fact that someone else is uncomfortable with what you're doing, or they believe that it's risky, or that you might cause harm, is a really slippery slope, because there's no way to really nail that down and prove it. You know, if I got pulled over right now for going over the speed limit, I mean, I'm guilty of speeding, but who am I hurting? And, you know, the idea that I'm going to hurt somebody because I'm speeding is, you know, it's just an opinion. It's not a fact. I like facts. I like things that are incontrovertible when it comes to punishing people, or rather, holding people accountable. If you, you know, if you can be shown to have caused a harm to somebody, well, that's an objective fact, and you can quantify it. Well, what was the harm specifically that was caused? Did you smash the guy's car, and how much damage did you cause? And okay, we know exactly what you did, and we know how much it cost, and here's what you owe. You know, you're responsible for compensating the person that you harmed. That strikes me as intrinsically fair and inarguable. You know, you really can't defend yourself against having caused a harm. You know, you either did it or you didn't do it. But the way our system works, you know, a cop pulls you over for the offense, the statutory offense of speeding. There's no victim other than the state or the government, which is ridiculous. They're not actual things, so they can't be victims. You can't hurt something called the state. And the question before the judge and before the court is whether you violated a statute, not whether you caused any harm. And it's no defense to say, well, Your Honor, nobody was hurt, no problems were caused. That doesn't work. It doesn't matter. In fact, the judge could completely agree in open court, well, I know you didn't do anything, no harm was caused, you seem to be in control of your vehicle. Nonetheless, the radar gun says that you were going 52 miles an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone, guilty, pay over money. So you're punished for things you have not done, for harms not caused, only because you've somehow trespassed against some edict, some rule that the government laid down. And that's a problem, and I think it's probably one of the fundamental problems that we have in the country right now, because it's endless, it's open-ended. You know, if you can punish somebody based on having violated a statute, not because they've hurt anybody, or because of something that they might do, or because of something somebody else did, and you're worried that other people might do it, or that one person can't handle the responsibility of X because another person showed that he was not capable of handling it. Well, I mean, you wind up with a complete busybody society, which is what we have now, and that busybody society eventually devolves into an authoritarian police state where everything that you do is micromanaged by managers who believe it's their job to control everybody, to prevent risk, and to keep everybody safe. You know, and you wind up being put in the position of an infant, you know, with that never gets to grow up, in a kind of prison for adult infants, and it's really kind of degrading and demoralizing. And I would much prefer a society in which we were free to live our lives and free to be left alone, and only when we did cause harm to somebody or something, we're held accountable for that. And otherwise, we could go our way in peace, and others could be free to go in peace. I think it would be an infinitely less stressful, more enjoyable society. Also, we wouldn't have this problem with police that we have nowadays, in which the police, the law enforcers, are constantly out looking for laws to enforce rather than keeping the peace. If their job were limited to keeping the peace, I think they'd have much less to do, and there would be much less reason for any reasonable person to have any problem with them. I mean, I wouldn't, you know, I mean, basically any normal person, you, me, you know, people who don't steal and people who don't kill and rape and all of those things, we'd never have to deal with cops, police, because we don't do those things. They'd have no business with us. If we saw one on the side of the road, it wouldn't be a threat to us. We wouldn't be worried about it. We'd never have to fear them. And I think that too would be a good thing. Anyway, that's the end of this rant. More up at epautos.com, the web's, as far as I know, only, and I think the best, libertarian car site. And thanks for viewing, and we will catch up with you next time.